Have you ever wondered what 2,000 volts of high voltage electricity would do to your flesh? This is one of the most dangerous projects on the internet. It's a high voltage transformer from a microwave oven, and today we're going to be doing a ton of rather sketchy experiments with it. I'm Jake, welcome back to the King of Random. So back in the day, Grant did a video with one of these where he took apart a microwave, pulled this thing out. This is called a microwave oven transformer, or if you're a nerd, an MOT, or a MOT, I don't know how to pronounce it. I just read stuff on the internet. And he hooked it up to a Jacob's ladder and made some really big electrical arcs. And it was awesome, and like 12-year-old me loved it. But he didn't actually do a ton with it. So today I'm thinking we completely explore the science behind how it works, some of the safety hazards, because this thing is absurdly dangerous, and do a bunch of experiments just to see what it can actually do. I am hooking up this screwdriver, which I've taped to a stick, which is non-conductive. This is a piece of PVC pipe. It's not conductive at all. So I am safe over here, and it won't fry me. I'm hooking these alligator clips up to the output of the high voltage. You've got high voltage coming out here. This cord just plugs right inside, and it's on. You can actually hear a low hum. And if I go ahead and touch the output to the ground, or the frame of the coil, we get a huge arc. That's gotta be like 5 inches long. And I'm a little bit scared to do this because I just burnt out one of these transformers by accidentally touching it to the coil, and I fried it. So I had to go get another microwave and get another coil real quick. So that's 1, 2, safety disconnected. Now I can touch it. So the first thing we're gonna do is what's called a Jacob's ladder. So I have here 2 coat hangers, which are not connected to each other. There's a little gap right here, and then as they go up, they get farther and farther apart. So we'll hook the positive end here, and this one will connect to the other coat hanger, and we'll just connect that to the frame, which is the ground of the high voltage coil. Just like that. So ground on one side, output of the high voltage coil on the other. So then when I switch this on, we're gonna get a really big arc between, and it'll slowly rise up in the air. Now you'll realize, interestingly, nothing happens until I make a connection between the 2 wires. Then suddenly it arcs at the bottom and it starts traveling up. And the reason for this is fascinating. So I have to start the arc, but once the arc is started, it stays on for like a couple seconds, and it can get really big, even though it has trouble starting when it's only like a 1/4 inch apart. And the reason for that is air is actually not very conductive at all, and it takes an insane amount of energy to ionize the air enough that it will conduct electricity. But once it is connected, and once that conductive path of ionized air is there, it can sustain itself. You can think of it like a literal pathway in the air. Another interesting thing is the arc is traveling upward, and the arc itself actually bends upwards in the air. And the reason for that is hot air rises, and this arc is rather hot. So it warps itself upwards as that path of ionized air warps upwards because it's hotter, until eventually it can't sustain itself and it goes out. So how does this thing actually work? What's the science behind it? We have our primary coil and our secondary coil, and these two are not connected to each other at all. I mean, physically they're contained in the same metal box, but they're not wired together. So you have your main power, 120 volts, coming from a wall outlet, and that goes to these 2 terminals on the primary coil right here. So this primary coil is powered by 120 volts AC. Now what happens when a coil of wire is plugged up to any sort of power? It becomes an electromagnet. You didn't know? Now you do. So the first coil is an electromagnet, and for some reason, through some science magic I don't fully understand, when a secondary coil is close to a electromagnet coil, the electromagnet induces actual power in the secondary coil. It's like a wireless transmission generation of electricity. And not only does it induce a current, it induces a freaking lot of current. 2,000 volts. Power goes in is 120, power coming out is 2,000 volts, which is crazy. Now I hear what you studious fellows are saying. Jake, 2,000 volts is not a lot of volts. A stun gun is like 30,000 volts, or a plasma globe is also like 30, 40,000 volts, and you are 100% correct. You can have tens of thousands of volts in something like a stun gun or a plasma ball, and that is impressive, but it's high voltage at very, very, very low amperage. What makes this thing different is the amount of current going through it. A stun gun will only put out like 3 milliamps, whereas this bad boy will put out like 1 or 2 amps, which is like 300 times the amperage. It's high voltage and high current. If all this talk of amps and volts and all this fancy stuff is confusing you, never worry, I have a sword. Pretend, for the sake of this dumb example, the sword is electricity. Volts are how sharp the sword is, and amps are how hard I swing it. The 40,000 volts of a stun gun is like a freaking sharp, razor sharp, obscenely sharp sword, but it's being swung very, very slowly, like this, because it's only at 0.03 amps, or like 3 milliamps. It's not gonna do any damage. It'll give you a nasty shock, and you're like, yow, I got shocked, but it's not gonna do any real damage. The 2000 volts of the microwave transformer is like a duller sword. It's not nearly as sharp, but it's at like 2 full amps, so it's swinging very, very quickly. So you're always told not to mix electricity and water. Well, I have here a bowl of water. It's just tap water. I've mixed nothing special in it. And I'm curious if pure tap water is conductive enough, because pure water actually isn't that conductive. It's the impurities in the water that make it conductive. So I'm gonna throw one end right here, right there. And I'm going to delicately dip the other end in the water. I guess we'll just see what happens. I have absolutely no idea what's gonna happen. But I am gonna stand back a little bit, just on the off chance that it causes the water to splash. I wanna make sure I'm away from any splashes that could possibly have current going through them. I really doubt it will, but I'll be very careful at the beginning just to make sure. So let's plugged in, switch on, table's clear, on, and let's just tap the water. Oh, interesting. What? So what's happening here? It's like, oh, I'm seeing some electrolysis happening on the other nail. What? So it's clearly conducting electricity right through the water. If I get close enough, will it arc? If I got too close, it tripped the surge protector? That doesn't make any sense. That's weird. Back on. It's arcing, but just at the top of the water. And if I dip it any farther, it's like it completes the circuit. And if you get in close, you can actually see bubbles forming on the nail itself. We're actually doing electrolysis, which is fascinating. That means we're actually breaking the water down into hydrogen and oxygen, and those are the bubbles forming on the 2 metal terminals. I'm gonna put some salt in this water and mix it up just to make sure it's super, super conductive, and we'll set that to the side for a moment. Our water has now absorbed, I believe, all the salt it's going to, because there's salt at the bottom and it's not absorbing anymore. So, oh, look at how it's rusting. That's from the electrolysis. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing. Throw one terminal in there. Salt-filled water. This water should be super conductive in 3, 2, 1. That looks exactly the same. That's the same. Okay, that's cool. It's like some kind of engine. Are you... What was that? I wonder if that was hydrogen. Because we're definitely seeing electrolysis happen, so I wonder if that was like a little bubble of hydrogen forming. That's straight plasma. That's just straight plasma arc. How long can I sustain that? Whoa! That's crazy. Look, the tip of the screwdriver's red hot. Or it was.
Oh yeah.
Alright, let's shut everything down, off. That was a red hot arc. And it was burning the screwdriver. So that plasma arc was enough, that was over, well, it was at least 2,000 degrees. Sorry, 1,500, because this steel was glowing red hot. At least 1,500 degrees. That's crazy. We really should spend a minute talking about safety, because as I mentioned, this is one of the more dangerous projects on YouTube, actually, and it's responsible for killing a lot of just amateur electricians and hobbyists. There's a couple reasons for this. Number one, it's very easy to get your hands on. Any idiot with a screwdriver and a microwave can have their hands on one of these in about 5 minutes flat. Your skin has a natural level of resistance to electricity, which is why you are able to grab both terminals of a car battery. This is 12 volts at like 275 cold cranking amps. Yet I can touch both of these without feeling a thing, even though clearly there's a lot of current going through that. But I don't feel anything. That's because this is low voltage. High amperage, but very low voltage, and my skin's natural resistance to electricity basically makes it to where it can't shock me. At high volts and amps like this, it goes right through your skin and it just starts cooking you from the inside out. And I mean cooking you in the very literal sense. But that's not the worst part. Your whole body, all of your muscles are controlled by electrical impulses sent from your brain. But they operate at like extremely low power electrical impulses. 2,000 volts going through your body completely short circuits everything. And it actually triggers all of your muscles to turn on. So it's like the super biggest mega full body cramp. Which means if I was to grab these two terminals while this coil was powered on, I would literally not be able to let go because the power coursing through me would lock everything down. Plus, adding on to all that, it would just straight up stop your heart. To make sure I don't make a fatal mistake, I've got a 3-step safety system over here. Number one, I am not touching anything near the coil while it's powered on with anything but this PVC pipe, which is non-conductive with this screwdriver on top. Secondly, the whole system is powered by this fun little thing I put together. So to power this on, I'll go ahead and go through my power-up sequence for you. First, I have to plug it in to the surge protector. Then I have to, that's step one. Then I have to switch the surge protector on, that's step two. And then finally, I have to flip this switch, which powers this outlet, which powers the coil. And to make sure I always know when it's plugged in or turned on or off, I have a light bulb here that when the circuit is powered on, make sure I'm away from it, it glows red, letting me know visually this thing is on. And as soon as you unplug it or disconnect the circuit, it turns off. But every time I unplug it, I don't just switch it off there, I also unplug it from the surge protector and then switch the surge protector off. So even if I forget one of these steps, heaven forbid, I've got 3 safeties. Step 1, plug it in. Step 2, turn on the surge protector. Step 3, and finally, flick the switch on. Now we are live. So make sure not to touch anything. There we go. And then reverse, switch off, surge protector off, unplugged, completely safe. And I'm not dead. Since this will fry you, I'm actually curious what it would actually do. Like, could it cook a steak, for example? And I have a steak, and in probably one of the worst wastes of a steak in history, we're gonna hook this thing up and just see if it's possible to cook a steak using high voltage. And I guess it's kind of a human analog as well. And it's already sizzling. It's turned gray around the nail. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, let's switch it on. Again, starts bubbling like instantly. What? Well, that's terrifying. It's burning the wood. I think that's what all this smoke is. Okay, turn it off. Unplug it from power. So we're safe. I think it's burning the wood more than anything else. I don't want to really touch the nails because I'm sure they're hot. But I should wear gloves. It actually is cooking it a little bit. Let's try a bit more. Yeah, it starts out slow, and then as it vaporizes the meat, it starts arcing. Oh my gosh! What? We made a meat rocket, folks. Inside the hole it created, it was white hot, like a welding arc for a second. Wonder if it'll do it again. Yup. You see how bright that is? So, can you cook a steak with high voltage? The answer is a resounding yes, and terrifying, because if those probes were in my arm, it would do the exact same thing. That's crazy. All right, next experiment. I want to try an apple. Hopefully we can get the apple to glow, because that would be hilarious. And then after we try the apple, let's see how many apples we can do. I have no idea how resistive the skin is. Yeah, I have no idea. I'm curious. So let's do this. Let's put one terminal into the apple skin, and we'll hook that up. And the other one, let's hook up to my safety stick, and we'll touch the skin and just see what happens. And let's touch them together. Not resistive enough. Are you kidding me? Whoa. Right through the whole thing. That is super conductive. Okay, let's switch off. Plug. Turn off. Now I want to directly attach the nail. And there it goes. It just jumped out. That's kind of scary. Different idea. Better idea. Let's just stack a bunch of these and touch this one and see if it'll transmit through all three. Are you kidding me? What? Okay, look at how powerful the spark is on the first one, the second one, and the third one. We've created an apple resistor. That's so stupid. No way. Let's just hold it there and see what happens. Look at that arc gap. That's crazy. So what happens if I just straight stab this apple? Oh my gosh. That actually looks insane. Look at this. It's like a ring of arcs. The apples actually aren't hot. They're so cold, interestingly. So apple juice apparently is very conductive. Don't know who needed to know that, but now you do. It didn't even, like, you would expect there to be a huge burn mark right down the center, but there's not. Man, that's interesting. It only burns where it's arcing. One of the coolest things I've seen done with high voltage is to burn wood with it. And when you do this, it creates these incredible, I think they call them Lichtenberg figures, which is like, it's as if a bolt of lightning is in the wood. It burns like a bolt of lightning. It's incredibly cool. So to do that, I've got one end on a nail that's right into the wood. The other end I'm going to touch to the wood. But remember, wood by itself is not conductive if it's dry, so I've got a bunch of salt water in here that I'm going to put over the area of the wood that I want to burn. So I'll just kind of get that wood nice and wet there. And this is salt water, so it should be very conductive, clear, hot. Okay. So there's definitely a sweet spot of too wet and not wet enough. Oh, are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's arcing through the wood. Yeah, it's lightning bolts. It's burning lightning bolts. That is one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Oh, that is just incredible to watch. So really, you need to burn it, then stop, wet it, burn it, stop, wet it, burn it, stop, wet it, over and over again. And once the path is already laid and it gets filled with water, it just straight arcs. Yeah, see now it's, well, okay, that's wet enough. Just hitting it with a little sandpaper to get the show better. Well, that was a lot of fun. It's a real pity high voltage is so dangerous, because it's incredibly fun to do and play with. Even though you shouldn't, please don't try this at home, seriously, you could die. We tested on a bunch of different stuff. We had a lot of crazy stuff happen, some stuff I expected, some stuff I did not. Fruit is, well, apple juice is very conductive. That's crazy. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Stay safe. And as always, let the random happen. Oh, no. See that bit there? That's cooked. That's a cooked steak. Fine. That's awful. It tastes like ash.